DisasterClass is part of the Readiness Lab, the home for podcasts, webinars, and training in the field of emergency and disaster services. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Wesley Long.
And we're bringing you a fresh new take on disaster preparedness.
Welcome to DisasterClass.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Perez.
Yes, and I'm Wesley Long.
And we're your hosts, and welcome to DisasterClass, the podcast that is dedicated to helping you, the everyday person, to be educated and prepared for disasters.
Yeah, that's why we're here. It's about the people.
Wesley, I don't know about you, but I am excited about this.
I am also excited.
Yeah, we're really excited to be doing this podcast and to be bringing this to all of you. We're going to start off by doing just a little introductory episode to tell you what the show is going to be about.
Yep.
Why are we doing DisasterClass? Who is it for, and who are we? Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be doing in this introductory episode.
Yeah,
today.
those are big questions.
They are big questions. Yeah, and we're going to have a little fun along the way.
A little fun?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know us, Wesley. I mean,
I do.
It's always going to be an adventure.
It will be, and sure.
So maybe we can start off with that first question. Why are we doing this podcast? So Wesley, I don't know about you, but when you think of the term preparedness or disaster preparedness, how do you think that word is often viewed? Or
it's a great question. I can't necessarily speak to how it's viewed by others. I can only ever speak for myself. So when I hear preparedness, here are some of the things that come to my mind. Zombie apocalypse. Off-grid.
Yep.
Right? Fashion. Yeah, I don't mean like clothing. I mean like people that like fashion a shelter.
Do you know how to fashion a shelter?
No, I don't know how to fashion anything. So a lot of times when I think of emergency preparedness, when I hear emergency preparedness and when I hear others talking about it, I know for me, I feel I'm usually out of my depth. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where to look. I don't know where to research. I don't know where to get good, common sense information that can help me and my family today.
Yeah.
Right. So that's me. What about you? When you?
Yeah, I kind of, when I think kind of the same things pop into my head, like build a bunker in your backyard to survive a nuclear holocaust.
Or it's like Fallout.
Have a stockpile of food for 2 years, and there's nothing wrong necessarily with those things, but I think for the everyday person, in those times of that terms, it's kind of impractical, right? And not everyone can really
I like that.
Can do stuff like that. Like not everyone has the time to go out and take a survival class and learn how to fashion a shelter and do all that kind of crazy.
You're gonna throw that in my face all day today, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank
you. But
the
truth is, there's a lot more to preparedness than there's a lot of survival kits out there. Buying a backpack with some gear, which is awesome. That's a great thing to do.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it than that, and
I agree.
There's a lot of very practical things that people can do that. They can help themselves.
Yes, and just to your point, I think especially now the times we're living in with a pandemic that is resurging right now, it's coming back hard and strong, at least in our area of the Northeast. There's a lot of companies out there that are putting together packs and kits, so there are a lot of options that people have, which is great. Like we love to have a lot of options, but some of the questions that come into play are, what's best? What makes sense?
And what is really going to work,
and what's going to work, what's going to work for me and my family, and what's accessible, right? What do I have access to where I live? So there's a lot to this piece of emergency preparedness, and I'm very happy that we're creating a forum where we can talk about it ourselves because we love discussing it, but also too, we can reach out to the community. We can talk to individuals and get their feedback. What's working for you? And maybe you're in a region where we haven't done a ton of research and you've got something that works really great for you. We're going to want to hear from you, right? We want to hear what's working for you. But for what we're trying to do now is we're trying to just help people kind of change their perspective in looking at what's available and how we should be thinking about the word preparedness. So the little company that we've created, and we'll get into all this of who we are and what we're doing in this space and, you know, why we're here. But we're trying to replace some of those words, the zombie, the off-grid fashioning, right? We're trying to replace those words with words like academic, systemic, logical, right? And another word that you hit, practical.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I've been hearing people pontificate about what people should be doing on a very, very high level. That doesn't trickle down to the people that matter. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our approach.
Yeah. And that's an important point because, you know, when we think about communities, right, the individual, household, and family are the most basic, fundamental unit of a community.
Core component.
You know, but we think about, you know, emergency services, you know, government agencies. A lot of there are big talks about preparedness and a lot of things that local, state, and federal government is doing on the emergency planning side, but those things don't always trickle down to the everyday person, which is really important.
Very, very important. And the way I like to write it, and I get my little notes here, I think the core components of that community, the people, the families, which all of it is based on, they are talked about. They are not necessarily talked to. And probably even more detrimental is information is never elicited from them to help guide the decision makers in making those decisions for them.
Yeah.
So for us, that's kind of our shtick, right? That's what we're doing. It's an opportunity for the people at the ground level to have a voice, right? And to be part of a two-way conversation between the people that make the decisions up top and have all the degrees. And sorry, I know you're working through your master's right now in emergency preparedness, which is awesome. Kudos to you. But for all these people that have these, you know, higher education components and understandings of things on a big scale, it never trickles down to the person and, you know, that has to go to the grocery store today and make a decision as to what to purchase, right? So that's kind of what we're hoping to fill the void for and fill that gap. Bridge that gap.
Absolutely. Because it's really crucial because, you know, in recording this introductory episode just a few weeks ago were the tornadoes that went through Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that region there. Currently right now, wildfires in Colorado. And then also not that long ago too was all the flooding in
Vancouver.
In Vancouver.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's easy to say these things, right? Because it's like one after another and it's in the news for a news cycle. And then it's like, oh, what's going to happen today? But let's just not forget that for the individuals facing it, these could be life altering events, right? Like Vancouver. This was a thriving port city, influential. They have money, cut off, like looting because cops can't get anywhere. Your normal EMS personnel at a standstill. They can't help you.
And it's interesting. Like I did just a little research. Just in the year 2020 alone, just for the United States, 22 presidentially declared disasters, amounting to over $100.2 billion in damages.
Could you repeat that?
That's $100.2 billion with a B.
B.
Yep, with a B. So
and that was 2020.
That was just
not 2021.
We haven't gotten the figures all yet for 2021 yet. So that was just for 2020. So, and I think really there's an important point that, and we can probably start going into a little bit of our background. So Wesley and I both have a background in the emergency medical services, and also me getting into the emergency management arena. What we have found with our experience is that, and this is just the cold hard facts, resources are limited.
So my background, just a little bit, we're going to get into a little bit deeper, but right now I am a emergency dispatcher for a pretty large hospital network in New York, Connecticut. Like between New York and Connecticut, I think they have 7 or 8 hospitals. Multi-billion-dollar organization. You would think resources. We've got people. We've got tons of employees. Yeah. Don't forget, COVID's not just hitting the patients, but it's hitting our workforce. So to say resources are limited right now is an understatement. Yeah. So I think the old adage of, when something happens, I'll call 911 and they'll be here.
Yeah, because I think, and this is important, I think, for our listeners to understand, like, people take for granted that, I just call 911 and someone shows up, right? It's like, oh, boom, they I called, they're there. That's not always the case.
Yeah.
Even on a busy, on a normal day, you can have delays and staff shortages and all kinds of these things going on. So now when you add a disaster component into that, where you have a large scale thing and those resources are overwhelmed,
in addition to what you're currently dealing with,
then it can get pretty scary, really.
Right, because if we have a tornado tomorrow, which could happen here in New York, because we've got everything, tornado, hurricane, COVID doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of phone calls we get for the COVID patients isn't necessarily going to decrease any tomorrow, even though there's also a hurricane for us to deal with. It's a tough time, and it's going to be really tough if that gets compounded with any type of disaster on top of the current workload.
Yeah.
Disaster Class is brought to you by Instinct Ready. Instinct Ready is working to educate, prepare, and equip the everyday person for disasters through comprehensive education and premium products. Disaster Class listeners can get 10% off site-wide at instinctready.com with promo code DisasterClass. Shop items like the U-Pack Pro, the most versatile, practical, and functional 72-hour survival system available. Or learn how to plan for disasters with the Community Emergency Planning online course. Visit instinctready.com today because preparedness starts at home.
When you need an emergency plan, you need Doberman Emergency Management. Their expert practitioners use best practice, data, and career experience to help you. So whether you're buying a home and want to know about your local hazards, or you're a professional needing additional support, Doberman Emergency Management can help. Visit DobermanEMG.com today to learn more. So let's talk a little bit about what are we going to be talking about?
Yeah, back on task.
In Disaster Class.
Yeah.
So we have this podcast that we're doing. What is the show about, and who should listen in?
Gotcha.
So I think we kind of talked about it a little bit already, but Disaster Class is all about helping to educate and prepare individuals and families for disasters.
Yeah, and I just want to throw in there right there. And the audience needs to understand this. This is taken from our community emergency planning class, right? So we have a little company together, and we'll get into that we've started trying to make an impact in this space. And the best way we felt we could make an impact is not selling somebody a bag. I mean, we sell bags. And please go to the website, buy a bag. But really educating, right? Instead of just giving somebody a fish, teaching them how to fish so they know what they can do to prepare themselves and their family, giving them an EAP, which may be more important
What's
than
an
a
EAP?
go bag. Great question. Emergency action plan. Thank you. Man, it's like we've done this before. Emergency action plan, so that you have, taken the time to think about different scenarios, right? Performing a hazard, assessment, risk assessment, all of that, doing that so that you can be prepared for your family. Super, super important. And that's a class. It's like a 2.5, 3 hour class that we put people through. And then we give them a certification so that they feel confident that they've learned something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this podcast is kind of like a derivative of that the disaster class, right? So it's an opportunity where we can teach you some things. We can learn some things, right? Because I think the best teachers are the ones that are continually learning.
Because, the reality is we've been actually teaching emergency preparedness for the past 6 years or so.
Yeah. So,
and so that's really, the reason this podcast is a little bit different, hence Disaster Class, is we're taking a very academic and scientific approach to preparedness. This is not necessarily doomsday prepping, which,
I get
you can do that.
And you got to prep
that's
yourself.
awesome.
Love it.
But we're taking a slightly different approach to preparedness. We're going to be connecting you with information from industry professionals, first responders, science-based methods. Some of the things we're going to be talking about, emergency planning, preparedness, mitigation, response, recovery. But we're taking all of that. These are really high-level concepts that are currently being done all across, federal, state, and local governments in the emergency services industry.
Yeah, people with
but
degrees.
We're taking that and putting it into the context of individual households and families.
Right. So that's how we view our benefit to individuals is we hopefully take all that information and distill it or focus it down into a very practical, usable, palatable, right, bits of information that individuals can use on an everyday basis. Because we can talk at a very high level about anything for a long time, but if it doesn't get broken down to actual practical steps, what good is it?
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of what we're here for, is to get that practical value out of these lessons, these high level lessons that individuals go to school for and, spend years learning about, and then spend years writing policies based on.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For the people.
So just so you guys know, so we're going to work at airing this podcast monthly. But we're periodically going to throw out maybe some bonus episodes.
Love bonus. Love
maybe
extras.
there's a current event going on, something that's really relevant to the conversation that we want to pick apart. We'll probably throw out a bonus episode and talk about that. We're also going to be bringing on some really awesome individuals, some industry leaders and experts, people who have been, who've responded to some of these disasters. We're going to be talking to some of these individuals, which is really going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to love to hear some of the lessons that they have learned.
Yeah. Get to hear things from their perspective.
Yeah.
As they sit down, they plan for full-scale events and then see them through. And then after action, they go through and they review that.
Yep.
Right. So you're going to get to hear kind of all different sides of that. And again, the goal is for that to be useful in the decisions that we make as individuals and families. Right. Because that's the only thing we can control, is the decisions that we make individually. But collectively, if we all make a little bit better decisions, things will be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Every level up from there.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. Because the more people within a community that understand preparedness and take these proactive steps to protect themselves, the more resilient and tough our communities will be for disasters. It's not the responsibility of one individual or entity or organization. If you live, work, or do anything within a community, we're all responsible to work towards building better, more resilient, and tough communities.
And there, he said it twice now. There's that big, master's degree word there, resiliency. But it is super important, right? The ability for an individual or community to bounce back, right? So the vision of our company is that the more individuals in a community that have these core understandings under their belt, the more resilient each individual will be, the more resilient each family will be. As a result, the more resilient the community will be as a whole. So that's kind of our goal. That's kind of our mission. It's kind of why we're here. Because we want people to be resilient. We want people to be able to bounce back, because stuff happens. You gave us the stats with a billion, right? That's insane. Stuff's happening, and it's getting worse, it seems. Doesn't seem like it's getting better. So we, as a people, need to be able to bounce back better, and that's our goal. This was our approach. Yeah, we'll sell you a bag, and that's nice. A lot of people sell you a bag. But for us, the education component is...
it's close and dear to us.
Yeah, near and dear to our heart.
So I think next we should probably talk about, who are we?
Yeah, like, who are these dudes?
Like, who are these guys, and why are they giving a podcast, and
why should we listen
do
to them?
they know what they're talking about? Yeah.
We don't.
So we kind of alluded to it already, but Wesley and I both our background is in the emergency medical services.
Yep.
We're both EMTs, both still active, still current. We're still on the job.
Yeah.
I work in New York City. Wesley's a dispatcher in Connecticut.
Yep.
So, and myself, I think it's, trying to think now, I think it's like 11 years. How long has it been for you?
I don't know. I'm like old, so it's probably 15, 16 years on the job. So, all right, stop. Yeah, so EMS is background, right? Responding, helping people, all of that, super important, super valuable. But then my journey into emergency preparedness was...
Yeah, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I just, like everybody else, I heard you got to have a go bag. I was like, okay, I don't know what a go bag is, but sure, I'll get a go bag. So I went and got a go bag. And I just threw it in my closet. And then randomly, I picked it up and started looking at it. And I was like, what's in this thing that I'm supposed to have? And I hate to, it's not FCC, it was crap. I'm like, this is trash in here. This is going to save my life. This is going to save my life. I'm like, there's got to be something better.
Yeah.
So I'm OCD, and I was just like, let me see if I can do better than this. So I just started researching. And then I was just like, there's so much information out there. Like, where do I turn? And I started having people ask me, like, oh, yeah, I heard you got a go bag. Like, what do you have it in? I'm like, oh, right now it's kind of trash. Let me get back to you. And I just started researching as much as I could about emergency preparedness and survival. And I started to distill it into just some common things that I needed and that was important to me. Mm-hmm. And I literally watched, to say countless YouTube videos is an understatement. Like, just YouTube video after YouTube video. I found some really cool people. Some guys are like, wow, these guys are great. But there was a lot of stuff on there that I didn't necessarily care about. Like, all the guys were like, you need 500 rounds of ammo, and which is fine. Self-defense is really, really important, and you got to figure that out for yourself. But that wasn't, germane to me. So I was just like, So I just kept searching. Anyway, I came down with a list of things that I think I should get, and I just literally started making some purchases and just testing stuff and like touching it and being like, okay, this is quality. This will work. And I started building my bag. And because of my OCD nature, I was like, you know what? I'm that type of guy where people have already asked me, and I'm probably going to have to share this information with people. So I should probably set this up in a way where I can share it with people. So I started writing a little document of all the things that I had and organizing it and how I had it organized and why I had it organized this way and why I purchased this product and not that product.
And you even had like little Amazon links and stuff in there too, right?
Yeah, don't make it sound like that. It was to help people.
Well, yeah, I saw that original doc. Yeah. I appreciated it.
Oh, thank you.
I was complimenting.
Thank you, Jason. So yeah, because what happened was people started asking me like, hey, what's in your bag? And they would just like invite me over and be like, have 5 or 6 people there and be like, hey, bring your bag, tell us about it. I called them go bag parties, and we have a little go bag party, and I would bring them my bag and explain to them, yeah, this is my stuff, this is why I bought it. Here's all the research that I did, but you don't need to know all of that. Here's the distillation of that research. Here it is. And then giving them the opportunity to feel the bag, put it on, feel the weight, touch stuff was seemingly extremely valuable to them. And literally, I created a little brand for some marketing so I could have a little followership.
You were affectionately known as
yes, you just love this name, Go Bag Wesley.
Love it.
It still can be found on Instagram, although we're kind of discontinuing that as we created our new brand. But got a little following, got to the point where people were requesting me to come and do like a little go bag party, a little go bag in service, in some areas in New York and Connecticut, nothing major, but it was enough where I was boots on the ground, and it was the very beginnings of creating a curriculum to teach people about emergency preparedness. And it was just trial and error, but it went on for probably 5 or 6 years where I was out there by myself, just boots on the ground level, talking to members in the community who genuinely just wanted to know how they could prepare themselves and what recommendations there were. And just be safe, yeah. And it just be safe. And at the end of that class, I always heard 2 things. It was funny. The first one is kind of not so great. Like, it kind of means I wasn't a really good teacher. But, like, the first one was they would always say, well, when there's an emergency, we're just going to come find you. And I'm like, nope, you've missed the point.
And you don't know how to fashion a shelter. So.
Right. I'm not fashioning anything for you. Like, we talk about, thank you for that. We talked about, but, like, this bag is for me. It's a one-person bag, so don't come find me because I have enough food for me, right? So stop that. I already taught you what you need to know. Go do that for yourself. The second thing, and this is where the business proposition idea really came in play, people literally just said, dude, you've done all the research. Can I just buy your bag? Over and over and over again. Like, if we're talking about product market fit for a business, it's like, people just were like, dude, I'll just buy your bag. And I was like, oh, my bag's really awesome. It's really customized to me. Things in there, I made really personal decisions. And I don't like cheap stuff. I'm like, my bag's probably going to cost you $1,300 to $1,500. You're not going to really want to buy my bag. So let's stop. Right. But it was really valuable education for me, right? To know that this was a niche that people wanted to be taught.
Well, I think it also shows too that, like, what other information is out there? Like, there are some stuff from FEMA and CDC and Red Cross and things like that, but, largely people don't know what to prepare.
Other than that, it's just a bunch of dudes and a bunch of ladies on the internet saying, buy this. And it's like, oh, okay, there's no governing body and formalization, and there's no academic approach to what is needed. So we'll get into that. Probably not today, but in other episodes. But anyway, so that was a little bit of my background, right? So EMS, trained as an EMT. I've been sitting in dispatch now, so it's nice being in dispatch now, especially working with this organization, because the emergency manager for the entire city of Danbury is my supervisor. So I get a chance to interface with the individual who's responsible for all emergency management in our city, which is really cool. Having an opportunity to learn under that person who's super knowledgeable, super educated, very influential in our little area. So nice. It's nice to also see a larger picture of how emergency preparedness is, developed and then rolled out and implemented for community, right? So it's nice to be able to kind of have that bird's eye view. But then also, too, on the teaching side, I've been doing the class. We'll tell the story, maybe not today, about the first class we had.
Yeah, we'll get back to we'll cover that later.
And then, kind of what you said to me.
Or maybe we'll talk about it today. We'll know.
No, we're not going to talk about that, but it's a great story.
Yeah.
Great story. It's really funny. Anyway, so I've had the history of doing that education component for 5 or 6 years. Then I linked up with Jason.
Yeah.
And I'll let you talk about where you came from and then kind of how we got together.
Yeah. So for me, same, started off in EMS, except I was on the street, not in the comfy dispatch office like some people.
Started on the street, bro.
There's always a little bit of a, back and forth between the road staff and dispatchers. It's a fun little rivalry.
Yeah.
But anyway, in my experience as an EMT, responding to all different types of events, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's, something personal incident to a large scale incident like Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Irene, some of these bigger events, it's amazing to me how little prepared people are just even for a simple medical emergency, right, let alone something big like massive, a disaster. That really kind of hit home for me.
But you said there was one major incident, right?
Yeah, there was one. What really prompted me to get into teaching was I had a situation where I was working. We got a call for an unconscious female in a dance studio. We get there, and we had a 19-year-old girl in cardiac arrest. 19 years old, young, beautiful, healthy girl in dance studio. She just dropped. In the 7 to 8 minutes,
which is a great response,
which is a pretty decent response time that it took me and my partner to get there, not a single individual did anything to help this girl. No CPR, no nothing. I mean, thank goodness they actually called 911.
Right.
But yeah, in those 7 to 8 minutes, nothing. And if you know anything about cardiac arrest and CPR, like those first few minutes are crucial. In fact, your brain cells start to die after just 4 minutes
of no oxygen. Yeah.
And I always say, the national average response time for an ambulance the last time I checked was like 7 minutes, which is a decent response time. But your brain cells start to die after just 4. I always say, do the math, right?
Right.
So after that, that situation really irritated and angered me.
Yeah.
Because nobody did anything for this girl. But after thinking about it and reflecting on it, I kind of came to the realization that, they didn't do anything because they didn't know what to do. Yeah. They hadn't been educated. They hadn't been prepared. They hadn't been equipped to deal with that situation. I had taken my training, my advanced training for granted, right? For me, a cardiac arrest, it's second nature. Yep. I don't get worked up. Like it's something we do all the time. And I just, when it happens, I know what to do.
Yep.
Because I've been educated, I've been prepared, and I've been equipped to deal with it.
Yep.
So I was thinking, like, why doesn't everybody know?
Right.
Like, this is such a really serious situation. Why doesn't everybody know how to do it? So that got me into teaching CPR and first aid. So I started doing that.
Spread the knowledge.
Yep. And back then I founded what was then Instinct Education. Started doing that in the community. Loved it. Loved teaching. Loved connecting with the community and teaching these skills. And then I met you.
Yeah. Random training class.
Random training.
Yep. We were in class for a week, just plopped next to this guy. And I was like, hey.
And we connected because we were like the two biggest nerds.
His wife
in the class.
Is mad cooler. But he's pretty cool. He's very cool.
Yeah. So then, I knew you were doing your Go Bag Wesley Go Bag parties.
Yep.
And I had been interested in disaster preparedness a little bit. And so we connected. And then we formed what is now Instinct Ready.
Yep.
which the mission of Instinct Ready, if you're not, we'll do our shameless plug here.
Yeah.
This podcast is not going to be about Instinct Ready.
No.
We're all about education and, preparing you guys. But we founded Instinct Ready, which the mission of Instinct Ready is to educate, prepare, and equip individuals and households, families for disasters.
Yeah.
And really the education component is really important and dear to us, and really the focus of our mission.
Yeah.
So
Amen.
together, we created what is now the Community Emergency Planning class.
Yes. So it's a curriculum that we developed after a lot of research, right? So we had 5-6 years of research of me doing my little go back parties and that little curriculum, if you would. I gave it to Jason. It was one sheet of paper. He then turned it into a full-blown PowerPoint. And then we put out feelers because we're always like, for us, it's all about, is this thing working, right? Is there value in it? It's not, we don't want to just do it just to do it. So we always put out feelers, get feedback. Some of the feedback that we got blew us away. Blew us away.
Yeah, because first it was 1 hour
It
class?
was a 1 hour class. We're like, all right, we'll bug these people for an hour. We'll get to geek out for an hour. We'll bug them for an hour. Then we'll cut them loose. The feedback overwhelmingly was, this is a really good class. You guys are really good at teaching it. And the class should be twice as long, at least. We're like, time out. What? Who goes to a class and says, I want more class? Like, that's so rare. So we realized we had something decent and we should make it a little bit more robust. So that's what we decided to do with this next class. We went ahead and we got the help of an actual educator, New York State educator, who's got their master's in education and is currently a school teacher, to really look at our curriculum and help us develop it and make it legitimate. So what we have now is about a 2.5 to 3 hour,
almost 3 hours.
Self-study course where you can get in there and go online, take the test, get a certification. Because again, you can go and buy a bag on my website. I have no problem with that. I would love it. Always love the sales. But I'd much rather educate you and your family so you can take care of yourselves, so that you can be instinct ready, right? So the readiness is instinctual, and you're just ready to go. So to us, that's what's near and dear to our heart.
Yeah, the education, because that's at the core of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But that's just a little bit about us. Obviously we'll probably get more into that later on in future episodes, but that's really kind of who we are at the core. And really, we started DisasterClass because we're teaching, these concepts in our class, community emergency planning. But we kind of wanted to help, get this to the people, right? We're going to take basically a lot of the fundamental components and principles that we teach in the class and kind of break it down in this podcast and be teaching you some of these core concepts.
Small bite-sized pieces that also allow for interaction and community response, right? That's the other part that's really cool. We get an opportunity to put ourselves out there, the things that we've learned, but also the opportunity to learn from the viewers, right? What's happening in your neck of the woods? What are some incidents that should be on our radar? What are some tips that you've done that help you and your family? Like when you go grocery shopping, are you buying 1 or 2 items a week or a month so you can be stockpiling some goods or whatever it is that's working for you currently? We're hoping that we're going to be able to develop a community and a forum where we can share that information and all learn from it together. Yeah.
So hopefully you're as excited about this podcast as we are.
Have you noticed we're excited?
A
little bit
excited. I mean, I think we may have gone a little overboard in this first one, but
I think it was the adequate amount of excitement.
It was an adequate amount. Okay, I'm glad.
Absolutely.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it's reasonable.
So just some of the cool features or things that we're going to kind of do on this show. First of all, if you have experienced a disaster,
sorry. First of all,
we can't
be too excited about this part.
Not too excited, but really, we're all in this together.
Correct.
We want to hear your stories, your experiences. What did you learn?
Yeah.
Those lessons learned, because we want to hear about it, and we can, hopefully we may be able to get a chance to talk to you, feature you on the show. Yeah. So we want to hear those stories, and really kind of go into this really community wide approach.
Yeah, knowledge share, right?
Yeah. Let's share the experience. We're all in this together.
That's it.
So the other thing too is we want to hear your Wesley kind of alluded to it. We want to hear your tips, right? If you're out there preparing, what are some of the things that you're doing in your region, your area, right? Because we're all in different geographic locations,
Yep.
different climates, and some of the hazards that we deal in one area is going to be different. So there's no one size fits all to preparedness. So we want to hear what you guys are doing. So connect with us and let us know what you're doing. We will want to hear it. Maybe we'll feature you on the show as well.
Yeah, awesome. And one last shameless plug. At this point in time, we've been in business as a company, Instinct Ready, for a couple of years now.
Yeah, 2019?
Yeah, 2019. So we've been up and running for a little bit, been selling a couple bags here and there. If you have purchased one of our bags, or if you have taken our class, we're sitting here saying that people have been saying the class is pretty cool and pretty decent. But if you've taken our class, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love a little testimony. Like, yeah, I took the class. Jason and Wesley are both boring.
Yeah, we get that a lot.
Class is boring. I was bored out of my mind watching those two. We might slightly edit that testimonial.
A little bit.
Delete it. No, but either way, we'd love to hear from you. Let's interact, right? I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
Let's start the conversation and keep it going.
Yeah, so if you have any, hopefully you enjoyed Disaster Class. Please subscribe, leave us a comment or a rating. If you have any questions, topics you want us to talk about, you have that disaster story to share, or a community, preparedness tip, please reach out to us. We love hearing from you guys. You can reach out to us via email at disasterclass@instinctready.com. or by sending us a message on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So connect to us. We want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, and if there's anyone that you know of in the industry that's professional or amateur, whatever, and you think we should collaborate with them, we would love to hear from them as well, because we also have a vision. We're going to be interviewing some different people. There's a group that's going to be coming on. They're just really awesome. We find emergency preparedness now is about collaboration. It's not about you stay in your lane, you do your thing. It's all about us together as a community doing things together. So if there's a company or someone that you think we can collaborate with, please send them our way. We would love to sit and chat, because the more knowledge, the more better. Is that yeah.
Who learned you how to spoke?
Yep. That.
And we're going to have some fun along the way,
Yeah,
too.
a little bit.
But thank you guys so much for listening to Disaster Class. We're so happy that you're tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay safe, stay prepared, stay ready.